Welcome back to
Off the Rails.
So hello everyone. It's been a long time. So let me, before introducing the topic,
we have some business that we have to tell the people about, because first of all, we haven't been in this room in
like 2 months.
Yeah, in like a month maybe. Last time that we were here, we had Ryan and Matt.
Yeah.
Which episodes came out? For those out there who probably noticed, episodes now come out every 2 weeks because we had originally committed to every week, and then we realized, oh yeah, we're architecture majors, so that's probably not going to work out super well for us. So now they come out every second Friday. This one is set to come out, I think, on Friday, January 17th. So, also, happy 2025.
Happy 2025.
How are we feeling about this year?
Happy New Year's, everyone.
Happy New Year's.
Happy holidays. I guess they were late, but well deserved. We finished finals. That was fun. I mean, it's done, and it was done well. So
yes,
proud of ourselves.
Yeah, very much.
It was a stressful semester. We tried to make it work. Very sorry for the episodes. But we're getting back on track, and we hope to deliver quality to you guys.
Yeah.
So today, sorry.
That's my bad. Hold on. But we have some fun things planned for 2025, I think. Yeah. We have some fun guests that we're trying to scope out.
Yeah. We don't have the guests, but mentally we do.
We are mentally planning for them. So 2025 is going to be an exciting year for Off the Rails. In 2025, both of us will be on co-op, but we are trying to plan so that despite us not being probably in the same city, we will still have episodes coming out for you guys. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much that's it for the business. Oh, and additionally, we're having some technical issues with parts 1 and part 2 of our lovely guests Matt and Ryan.
Yeah.
So the video version of that might come out a little bit later, but that's okay. We're working on that. So it might not come out in order, but it'll come out eventually.
We need to fix how we record videos.
Yeah.
So once we figure that out, there won't be any delays.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Aysha, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we're talking about Notre Dame. In French, how do you say?
Notre Dame de Paris.
Yeah, we're talking about that. This was a suggestion that came up because as we were talking about, like, we saw each other and we talked about our, like, winter breaks.
Yeah.
And Justine happened to go to France over the winter break.
Yep.
Which she had a lot of fun. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We did like a nice little 10-day break with my parents and I. And we stayed the majority of our time in this tiny little town called Riquewihr. And it was really, really quaint. And we were able to visit Strasbourg and Colmar. And then we were able to spend some time in Germany, some time in Switzerland. And we're able to finalize our trip with 24 hours in Paris, which was insane.
A bless, but
insane.
Also a curse.
Well, there is so much to see in Paris that, like, you cannot do that in 24 hours.
Yeah, that's why it is a curse.
Yeah.
But it's also a blessing.
But with 24 hours, we were able to see a decent amount of stuff for having just, like, 24 hours.
And that decent amount of stuff.
Yeah. So in that decent amount of stuff, we were able to go see the Notre Dame.
Reopened.
It was so
recently.
busy.
Yeah.
We weren't able to see the inside, which honestly I was okay with because
Did they open it though?
Yeah.
It's open
just
to the public, right?
It was so busy And but just seeing the outside was like, oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous. My mom has a picture of me just like seeing it for the first time and crying. Yeah, but it's so anyways, we were giving each other like the rundown of like, what'd you do this break? What did I do this break? And then we started talking about like, oh wait, that would actually be like a good topic to talk about for our next episode. Especially because both of us are history geeks. We're both very interested in restoration. So we're going to introduce our first case study that we're going to go through, which is just talking about like a building or an interesting time period and looking at like specific buildings from eras that really interest us. So what better
if you want to get a little bit of knowledge about it, you can do it with us. We are also learning from each other. We haven't shared what we know.
Exactly.
So I probably learned stuff from Justine, and Justine might.
Well, probably.
Emphasis in might learn some stuff from me. I watched a lot of documentaries on this stuff, a lot of videos about the restoration specifically. So hopefully something stuck, and I can like tell you guys about it. In a shorter version.
Yeah. Well, also the Notre Dame is like so...
It's very extensive.
It's so popular, and there's such a rich history.
Yeah, it's very extensive history. Also, like...
And an hour can probably not cover it, but we'll give you the basics to impress people at dinner parties, so...
But that'll be fun. Okay, so I guess like let's start with like a little bit of background on Notre Dame.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, okay. Let me pull out my files here because I did not remember all of this by heart. I don't have the most extensive background in the Notre Dame. However,
but
I did write a paper 2 years ago about like reconstruction and tourism and if one impacts the other, and the Notre Dame was a case study that I focused on, so I know a little bit about the restoration of the Notre Dame.
I think we can touch upon it, like a little bit of the tourism aspect of it too. That
absolutely.
You wrote in your paper, which I read a little bit about your paper. I didn't finish it, but
that's okay.
I did start it.
You don't have to worry about that.
So it was interesting though.
Oh.
It wasn't a boring read. It was an interesting read. Yeah.
Making me blush. Okay, well, we can start talking about the history.
Yeah.
It was originally built in the 12th century. It is categorized under French Gothic architecture.
Yeah.
Its original construction started in 1163, and it was commissioned under the King Louis VII, with the guidance, that was very popular guidance, of Bishop Maurice de Sully.
I guess a lot of parentheses on that if we want to mention what are characteristics of Gothic architecture.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to give the crowd like those like main points. I guess like my first point of Gothic architecture is mainly like a more pointy type of facade.
Yes. There's also a lot of exposed engineering aspects.
Yeah.
Like one of the main things that they teach you like day one of Gothic architecture is like, oh, there's flying buttresses.
The flying buttresses, which very important.
If you have watched Beauty and the Beast, they mention it like 3 times. Yeah. It would that word gets those words I guess get tossed around a lot.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what those are, basically there's kind of like
there's it's like a structural semi-arch that kind of like goes into the structure to make sure the structure is stable. Yeah. So it's like some kind of, it's a mainly structural component of architecture. It's not like an aesthetic component. It's mainly to sustain and make sure like the actual building sustains itself, and mainly because of such a high... The height of the building is really high. If Notre Dame was one of the highest, I don't know if the highest, but like it was under the highest buildings in France.
You've convinced me.
On that, at that time, like the structural like preservation, to preserve that structure, you had to create those flying buttresses, which kind of stabilize the structure,
right,
which are very important later on when we talk about the restoration.
From an engineering standpoint, the reason the flying buttresses are there is because the roof of these Gothic churches tend to be so heavy that the walls can't sustain the height, and so the weight, but so the flying buttresses are there for load transfer purposes.
Yeah.
And so if it kind of gravity plus the weight makes it so that it puts a lot of force down on the walls can't take enough all that weight, and so the flying buttresses kind of take over that extra force to make sure that, like Aysha mentioned, it doesn't collapse. So so that is one huge thing. Another huge thing is also the rose windows, which you see very often in the front of these buildings. So they're usually kind of like a circular mosaic building that's kind of floral design. That's like
there's a word for that.
Where's the rose windows?
But the stained glass.
Yeah. So that's again, another Gothic 101 that I was taught. So the three main kind of elements that we mentioned was the
you probably can find more.
There's so much more, but
we're just trying to make you see the most specific ones, to kind of look at something and be it has a Gothic aspect.
Yeah. This is essentially a Sparks note of what. not a Sparks note, but
an Aysha version of the information. I can
Reader's Digest. It is a Reader's Digest version.
I'm digesting a lot of information that I search.
Yeah. So those three components you can see to this day. I don't think that they're the original ones.
No,
the majority. They're definitely not the original ones, but you can still see them.
I think the first one of the points, the pointy roofs.
Yes.
And, that's the main one.
The nave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a nave. Well, continue with your introduction. Okay. I kind of
No, that's okay. I think that's important, and honestly, I want to make sure that everyone who's listening to this feels included, because we've been studying this for 4 years, right? Some people have not even touched architecture in forever, and so it's gonna be important for us to be welcoming to everybody, so that it's not just for architecture people alone. Mm-hmm. So continuing with the history, the construction began in 1163 under the reign of King Louis VII and the guidance of Bishop Maurice de Sully. Originally, the bishop had envisioned this to be a huge grand cathedral that was placed to replace the older and smaller churches that were on the Ile de la Cité, which is where it currently sits in Paris. And so the reason that it was originally built was to reflect the growing population and the prominence of Paris as a cultural and religious center. Yeah. So in this early construction that lasted between about 1163 and 1250, we see the foundation of early work. So the first stone was laid in 1163, like I've mentioned, in the presence of Pope Alexander III. So they really made this a big deal and saying look at Paris, this Catholic and Christian religious center, and made it a really big deal. And the construction began with the choir and the apse, which was completed around the year 1182. So it took them just shy of 20 years to complete that. So the choir became operational for religious services even as construction continued. So even as they were trying to finish this project, it was already in use. It continued on with the nave and the transept that we were just discussing in the early 13th century. And then that's when the introduction of flying buttresses came in. After the flying buttresses is when they completed the towers. So what now there's kind of a plaza that's facing this iconic Western facade. It is so
imposing.
Exactly. So these two towers were constructed between 1220 and 1250, and
that's not so long ago.
But it took 30 years to build those two.
Yeah.
That's insane. So anyways, so the South Tower, the iconic South Tower that held the Emmanuel Bell, was finished around 1250, weighing over 13 tons.
13 tons.
So tiny. Okay, so to continue on, the refinements and additions kind of were between the years of 1250 and 1350, where they added different elements like structural details, or sorry, not structural, sculptural details, including gargoyles and biblical scenes and saints that you can see that are all carved in this western facade. And
yeah, the facade is
amazing.
So detailed. I encourage you to go and look at some pictures.
It was amazing to see. Also, I think my mom mentioned that there's kind of like this Where's Waldo, where you can see someone is apparently just like holding his own head. It's like I don't know if it's a thing, funny. But that's what my mom told me, and I really want to believe that that's true because that's really cool. And then to go back, when they added the sculptural details, they also added the rose windows that we were talking about earlier. So the construction was officially done in 1350. Starting originally in 1163, so took like no time, just like a little bit under 200 years. Took no time. So after this was done,
you know what impresses me a lot with like all of these buildings, like for example Sagrada Familia, is like, how do you pass down all the information from generation to generation to make sure it ends up being like the first drawings? Because you look at Sagrada Familia and it literally looks exactly how it was, like it should be, you know? So it's like incredible how architectural drawings like get passed down from generations. And also, how do you understand it? Like someone died and it's like plain telephone.
No, that's so true.
It's plain telephone.
Plus, you imagine that like technology is kind of like advancing. Yeah. But they're still using the same technology and same set of skills that were originally used in 1163. Yeah. To finish it in 1350. Yeah. Like, that's insane. Anyways, after the construction, moving on to between the 14th and 17th century, different things were kind of changed, such as the spire, the wooden spire, that really famous wooden spire was added in the 13th century, but was later replaced in the 19th century by a new spire designed by Eugène Viollet-le-Duc.
Don't look at me. I don't know French.
Eugène Viollet-le-Duc. I'm gonna say that more confidently.
Eugène Viollet-le-Duc.
Killed it. Which, because in the 19th century, which we will talk about in about like 2 seconds, there was the first set of major restoration that occurred after that it had kind of been neglected for a long time. But other than that, over the 14th and 15th century, there was a lot of small additions and refinements that were continued to be like added on or, refined, just so that it can continue with its like grandeur and just absolute beauty that was.
I feel like at that point, it's just wasting money. It's just like
depends who you are. Like,
yeah, I guess.
I understand why, if like to keep it like clean and to make it so that it doesn't hurt people, like if it was like neglected like it was between the 18th and 19th century, and for whatever reason it like ends up falling on people, that seems like a
we'll
good
talk about that. We'll talk about that.
That seems like a good use of money to me, to make sure that it doesn't injure people.
Foreshadowing.
I'm trying to be careful with my words, but it is not working quite as often as I was hoping that quite as well as I hoped.
If we're foreshadowing what is gonna happen, then they did the right calls. Yeah. And we shouldn't judge.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I think they're doing a wonderful job now. With the restoration. But either way, we're almost done with the historical part. I'm sorry, I'm like talking at you and at them, but it's almost done. And then Aysha is gonna like take it away with this amazing new information that she's gonna share with us. So
I'm laughing because I'm like, okay.
So between the 18th and 19th century, there is a period of decline and neglect with the Notre Dame, especially due to war, unfortunately. So during the French Revolution between 1789 and 1799, the Notre Dame suffered extensive amounts of damage. Many of its treasures, sculptures, and religious symbols were destroyed or looted, and the cathedral was actually even used as a warhouse for a little bit. Additionally, there was this huge kind of like uprising or not uprising, but there was this huge kind of popularity that was brought to the Notre Dame because in the early 19th century, Victor Hugo wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Oh, yeah. So, at that point, the Notre Dame had fallen into disrepair.
I actually watched that movie.
Tell me how it's not like Tangled. People, I will die on this hill.
I don't think I've ever thought about it, but sure.
Do you want to take a quick tangent? Because I feel like I have such a...
Okay, sure. Okay. Go ahead.
So, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is about this bell ringer who...
At the Notre Dame.
At the Notre Dame, who is ringing this, like, huge bell.
Lives at the Notre Dame.
At the Notre Dame. And is besties with the gargoyles that just...
That are the sculptures of the Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But it was a long time ago. I'm, like, analyzing a movie that I have to remember when I was, like, watching it at 10 years old brain.
That's fair. I haven't watched it for maybe, like, 2-3 years.
That's, like, not such a long time ago.
Did you not have, like, a period of time when you were doing studio work that you were just like, I'll throw anything on?
No.
Oh. Anyways. I think it's, like, Tangled, long story short, because The Hunchback of Notre Dame is basically, like, taken away from the population of Paris because the guy who, quote-unquote, adopts him keeps on telling him, you cannot leave, you cannot see the outside world. And
but then also, he's the one who killed the parents.
He's not a great guy. You compare that, and the only reason that he leaves is because he wants to live his life. And he sings a whole song called Out There, I think.
How does it go?
And I'll spend one day out there. Either way, he sings a whole song about how he wishes that he could leave. And then
because he fell in love with a girl.
Because he fell in love with a girl. He does end up leaving. The girl doesn't
like him.
Which I was like, wow.
His friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they end up getting married.
What I'm saying is, he sings a song saying, I want to go out there and experience the world what everybody else does. And you're telling me that that is not like like Rapunzel's mom, kidnapper, whatever you want to call her. Not mom. Mother Gothel? Is that what her name is? Whatever. She sings a whole song about how she can't leave.
She's called Mother.
Oh, yeah, okay. But she sings a whole song about how she shouldn't leave.
Yeah.
Because she's like, the outside world will never take you as one of their own, and you shouldn't leave this tower.
No. In the Tangle was more about, like,
you'll die when you leave.
Yeah, people are bad.
People suck.
People are bad. And then in the other movie, it's more about, like, look at yourself. You are ugly. What were you
like, anyways, whatever.
I think they're, like, two different cases.
Yes, but I'm just saying there's a lot of overlap.
I can see where you're coming from. And
there's a lot of overlap.
I understand.
I will die on this hill.
I understand where you're coming from.
Anyways. Bringing it back all the way to the actual history and not about Justine's weird obsessions. In the 19th century, Hunchback of Notre Dame is written 1831. So it brought a lot of attention to the Notre Dame de Paris. And then Paris was like, shoot, it doesn't look as good as it used to because we have neglected it for all this time. And so they were like, you know what? There's a lot of attention.
Tourists are like, this is not what I watched on the movie.
Exactly. And so they were like, all right, we're going to make a tourist attraction out of this. We're going to get people to come to Paris to see this. And we're going to start this major reconstruction.
And they got you.
Absolutely, they did. Didn't pay any money, though.
Yeah, but you still saw it.
Yeah, and it was gorgeous. I would go I'll go inside. I say next time, fingers crossed that I can go to Paris again. But, like, you know. So that's when the guy that I just mentioned, what's his name? Eugène
Viollet-le-Duc.
Eugène Viollet-le-Duc began this major reconstruction in 1844. So just 13 years after The Hunchback of Notre Dame came out. And this restoration project lasted over 20 years and included the restoration of the spire that we were previously talking about. It included the addition of chimeras, which are not gargoyles, but they are like, I actually have no idea what they are, now that I think of it.
Google it.
The difference between a gargoyle and a chimera.
Oh,
wait, that's so cool.
That's interesting.
Fun fact of the day, guys.
Yeah.
A gargoyle's purpose
is to drain water. Wait, it makes sense. It makes sense because in the movie, they're always throwing water. Disney kind of... They ate with that one. They did their history, like architecture stuff.
So, okay, the difference between a gargoyle and a chimera is that a gargoyle's purpose is to drain rainwater, while a chimera is purely decorative. Wow. Okay, you learn something new every day. Holy crap!
But that's why they're like always like throwing water. Remember?
Yeah, they have that.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That's why I'm saying, yeah. Yeah.
Kudos, Disney. You got me there. You got me.
Yeah.
That's good. Anyways.
That was such a fun fact.
I feel good. I feel like I can leave here now, like, knowing something new.
I told you guys that we were going to learn together.
This is awesome.
This is not like I know the stuff. We're learning together.
We'll know now.
We know now.
Because think about it. When someone goes like, oh, what do you know about the Notre Dame? And you go, listen to episode 6.
No one's gonna ask that question.
We don't know.
But I love your enthusiasm.
We have no idea if they're gonna. No. We're prepared. Let me be positive about this, because now we'll have a whole we'll have a whole episode about this. Please. Now, on to the 20th century. Oh. I promise Aysha is gonna be able to talk so soon. Thank you so much for staying with me for this past like almost half an hour. So 20th century, the Notre Dame survived both world wars largely unscathed, but due to natural aging, it did kind of contribute to the ongoing deterioration. So in the late 20th century, there was more conservation work that continued, addressing structural integrity and cleaning the facade. Now, everything seemed like it was going great. And then 2019 hit.
Yeah.
And then this is where Aysha gets to cover.
Also, COVID hit then, so it makes sense.
2019 was just hit after hit, man.
Yeah.
Like,
so 2019 comes over, and it brings hell with it. So the Notre Dame Cathedral lights up in fire. The roof lights up in fire, and everybody, as when I was watching the videos, you can see the people's faces. They're like, oh my God. People are crying too.
Well,
on
yeah,
those videos.
The Notre Dame is like this huge significance of like strength and resilience of Paris.
Of the
and now
Parisian people.
Yeah. And the world is like falling apart because of COVID. And on top of that, at this point, COVID hasn't hit. It hit after. Oh, so that's like that makes it kind of even worse. It's like this.
No, actually, it makes it better because then they could have like immediately mitigate what was happening. If it was COVID, that would have been much more harder to like, go inside at the time of COVID when it was starting out. Right. So I think it was a good time. So it happened in April 15, 2019. So the Notre Dame has this wooden roof known as the forest. It's made of the oak beams, and it because of the fire, the whole roof collapsed. And at the time, they were having some like kind of construction or something going on, like some maintenance going on. So they had like this, I don't know what it's called, like those like pipes that go through. Like, it's like there's a name for it, but you know how you're in New York
scaffolding?
And yeah,
scaffolding.
All the scaffolding was up, which made it even worse when the lights are kind of okay. Well, it kind of looks nice. We turn off
so
like
funny.
a light.
Okay.
It actually like
You know what? This
lighting.
is kind of a vibe. Let's.
Oh, because it gets dark. Now.
Yeah. Oh, it's
the
like a
story
little,
gets
like...
darker. I kind of like the red in the back. It makes me feel
Okay.
like
Okay.
So, the roof fully destroyed, collapses completely. People's faces are surprised. They're crying. People are crying. People are surprised as people are watching it happen.
Yeah.
This is in the middle of the day too. It's not like something that happened at night.
So that broke out like at noon, I think.
Yeah. So when that happened, like it's rumored that it was apparently like electricity.
Yeah, it was something that.
With yeah, it was a short circuit. Or a cigarette. It's like unknown. But, like,
I was wrong. It broke out shortly after 6 p.m. The fire.
Well, there was bright light out there, but the fire destroyed the roofs and spire and parts of the upper walls. But the main structure of the twin towers that we talked about that were like very, as you said, very imposing, they were untouched. So they were not destroyed. Also, the stone bolting and the rose windows were saved, thankfully. But because of the roof falling down with the scaffolding, a lot of like the structure was compromised, especially part of the sides. Because part of the roof was kind of like attached to that. So when that roof fell down, those side parts of the actual building were compromising in the sense of they were either going to fall down inwards with the scaffolding or they were going to fall outwardly towards the buildings. Because around that area, there is a plaza, but at the sides, there's like...
It's so close.
It's like it's like apartment buildings.
Tiny side streets.
Yeah. It's like an apartment building.
Yeah.
Like on the side of the street. And so like the first thing that was like the main concern of safety was making sure those like side parts of the building didn't fall down onto the apartments. And also those two side of the parts of the building had two very mainly important sculptures at the top. So that also was like a part of like we need to preserve this before it actually like falls down and gets destroyed. So the first thing they did was put in wood braces on the sides to make sure those sides were like attached securely so they wouldn't fall onto the apartments. Once that was done, and when I was watching how they were doing it, people were like sweating and stressed, and they're like, well, I don't know how I did it. Like, like the precision, like I was scared, but like if I didn't do it, who else was gonna do it? Like these are the words they're like using on the documentary. So like they're like stressed. I can't, like I don't know how I would do it. Because there's also like a main chief architect at the Notre Dame, which apparently before, like, it's like they have one. Either it, like, for maintenance, like, they have, like an architect. Imagine your job is like, oh, maintenance, and I'm a chief architect. And all of a sudden, you have to restore one of the most iconic buildings of Paris. Like, I would be
no pressure.
Scared.
No pressure. France's tourism is kind of, like, riding on you, but, like, no biggie. You got it covered.
I would be so scared. I would actually be like, this is not what I'm getting paid for. This was not in the job description.
I can't imagine how stressed that guy must have been.
Yeah.
Knowing that the Olympics were coming. Like, just 5 years later.
Oh, yeah, because they do know early.
Because, like, I think it's, like, 16 years or 14 years early. Like...
Early.
A while in advance.
Yeah, so I know at that point, they should have known.
They must have been just like, oh, and a deadline. Fun.
Wait, the deadline is, like, they just opened it recently, no?
Yeah, but originally, Macron had declared that it was going to be open for the Paris Olympics. Like, I think back when it was destroyed, the biggest thing was like, we want Paris to be at its full glory when the Olympics are here.
Yeah.
So they were like, we will get it done, you know, before the Olympics. And then COVID hit and they went, never mind. It's not going to work out that well. So
Macron went on the news and he was like, we'll restore it in like French. How would you say that?
On va la restaurer. I don't even know if restaurer is right, but it sounds like okay.
But he was
gave
like,
a nice speech.
Yeah, we're gonna be at our fullest again, I guess. So as I was saying, so first thing was that. The second most compromising thing was making sure the actual scaffolding wasn't falling down onto the structure, because that would have caused the stained glass to break, or if there were workers coming in and out, that would also be of risk. So the second thing that they had to do was to put a net through the actual scaffolding. So imagine the scaffolding just like is destroyed and it's kind of melted in. So like whatever movement like it does, like it will fall down into this void.
Right.
So what they did, it was like put a net over that space of the void, so when it falls down, it fell down on the net. But for that, they needed to like shoot the actual net through the void to the other side.
I feel like if you put like the Mission Impossible background music, that would be like a really fun watch.
No, and the guy, when I was watching the video, the guy was like actually positioning himself like
that's
like,
so. I want that job.
No, you don't.
I just want to have some really cool role, and that seems like that would also be a really cool role.
The guy on the documentary, he was super scared. He was like, if I hit it and it goes and I overshoot it, it's gonna hit the stained glass, and there is no recovering from that. But if I don't, it might touch the scaffolding and everything will fall down.
I take it back.
It was nerve-wracking.
I take it back.
It's not like one thing can go wrong. Two things can go wrong. I don't want to do that at this point. Two things can go wrong at this point. That's fair. But he made it. It's fine. He
best case scenario.
Like, he didn't actually do that. I'm just like over dramatizing the actual like whole thing.
Right.
So he's like, I'm okay. We're okay. People are like clapping every part of the way. People are clapping every single part.
Right.
Because they're like excited.
Yeah.
So the work environment is kind of good.
Morale was fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Question for you.
Yeah.
In your research of the rebuilding and restoration efforts, did you find anything about the amount of asbestos that it uncovered? No.
Did you?
Yes.
Do you want to say something
about it? Because this was okay. Like I mentioned.
Do you mean the lead or like?
No, there was a buildup of asbestos, and so before they could put the net up, they had to. So the roof, when it fell, it revealed a lot of toxic asbestos.
Oh, so you mean like I think they mentioned like how much lead it had. Like it,
yes.
So people had to like work with like the
hazmat suits.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a combination of a lot of different kind of like chemicals. So lead, asbestos, that under the circumstances kind of created just these toxic fumes and this like toxic.
Yeah, when it was burning down, you can see the fumes.
Yeah. So that kind of elongated the reconstruction process just because you had to be really, really careful and take all the proper precautions when you went to work there, because if you spent too much time around the fumes or around kind of like those hazardous materials, then it can impact your health very quickly or in the long run. But either way, they were good.
No, they were taking blood tests every single week or something like that. But also, like, in the summers, they had to, like, take showers every single day.
Yeah.
Because of the risk of
There you go. The fire exposed more than 200 tons of toxic lead from the roof
Lead,
and the spire.
yeah.
You're right. It is lead.
Thank you for chiming in. So
It's crazy.
so they stabilize the structure, but then they bring also experts to look at the stained glass and all that. And when I was looking at them, they were like experts like in stained glass. I did not know that. They were like looking at it, examining it, taking pictures of it, which I was like, this is kind of crazy. Like, imagine like this is your moment. Because I don't think a lot of people do stained glass.
That's
like,
true.
Stained glass in buildings is not like a common thing. So like
they should have badges.
Yeah, like I just feel like that's like very niche. Like where do you even specialize?
Like
at the
how do you get that
university?
expertise?
Yeah.
Who taught you?
Yeah. How do we know you're good?
Like who gave you that degree to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of like as we were saying, like a lot of like the roof was made of oak tree, but also like whatever that caused the lead to, like the heavy metal that they use. But let's leave it at there was lead.
We never claim to be experts, everybody. We are learning just like you.
Lead. Yeah. Oh, I also watched some interesting video that they were talking about how they were having to put some kind of like temporary roof, because of course you cannot build the roof at like the same day, right? So they made like this temporary roof of like, I think it was like steel and like, no, it was like, I think it was steel and like some aluminum to cover it.
Got it.
And what the roof was like, two parts were covered, and then one of the parts was like, it had like some rollers, so they could open the roof easily, and like so they could go up and work, and like they could close it easily too.
That's cool.
So that was cool. I was like, rollers, structural engineers.
Really? That's really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. But then, sorry, they started reconstructing the actual roof. So they also use oak trees for that, just to like replicate what the material was at the time. They reconstructed the roof. They used a lot of like digital technology, which probably they didn't have before.
Well, yeah. Wasn't there like a lot of what's it called? Like 3D printing used?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have more information on that?
I was asking you.
No, but I think they did. Not remember very well, but they do mention something about technologies.
Yeah.
But like that's interesting, because I bet like a lot of people modeled the Notre Dame before even like the Notre Dame like got destroyed. So like there probably were a lot of resources that they could access to of the actual building before the destruction.
Right.
Because like documenting things after the fact are much more harder than when you have them in presence and you can actually see them and document that.
Yeah.
So that's something that's good, because like archaeologists, like they have to trace back and like think of like, maybe this is how it looked, you know, but they have like all the information and the resources to kind of recreate that and rebuild the Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I have to say. It was really cool.
Oh, that's
she
nice.
said that's not
that's cool.
That's not cool. She said,
well, I'm like, all that I wonder is like, how do you find the people to do that? You must have so much faith in someone to just be like, yeah, just, you know.
No, but I don't understand how you have faith in yourself to be like, yes, I can do it. Or yes.
False confidence?
I don't know. No. Maybe they were the only people that they were like, no, we need you. They're like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No. Are you sure? No, you don't.
Well, you know what's cool is if you walk, so not to bring up my trip again, but when we went onto one of those side streets, and the whole, because they're still rebuilding and they're finalizing some stuff now.
It's not, it's still some things undergoing.
Yeah. But the
Go ahead.
inside's open, so you can go check out the inside. Actually, fun fact is that for the first, I think, 2 years, due to both the mix of COVID and because of the hazardous materials that were exposed during the fire, tourism went down. I think it was like 70%-ish. And
Wow.
but then people started saying, you know what, I want to be able to see it while it's being built. So then tourism skyrocketed because people wanted to see it while it was being constructed. So before COVID, it averaged about 30,000 visitors a day.
Yeah, they also, when I researched, that was crazy. And I think one of the things that they mentioned, just to cut you off there, was that the impact of like seeing it being like totally destroyed, because it was like, as you were saying, 30,000
people a day,
day, and then all of a sudden the day it's like there's no one, there's so much silence, and it's just
that must be insane.
No, it just felt weird. It just felt out of the normal. But go ahead.
But so to add on to what you were saying, before COVID, about 30,000 people a day. And then just as it, like right after that it had burned down, and in the beginning of COVID, it went down to an average of, I think, like 200 people a day. Which still a lot, but not 30,000. And then
30,
now
30,000
a day.
Yeah, I know.
And it was like, I think it was between 10 to 12 million tourists a year before COVID. And now...
How many students is the population of Northeastern? I think it's
like 36,000.
Yeah, it's like that.
36?
But again, yeah, we have so many buildings, and they have like one. And they're like 30,000 visitors coming.
Yeah. But so before COVID, 30,000. During COVID, 200. And now 200 a day.
During COVID?
During COVID. But it went from 30,000 people to 200 a day.
But during COVID.
Still. But I think now it's up to like 50,000 a day.
Oh, like.
Because people are like, I want to see it be reconstructed.
Yeah, you were one of the 50,000.
Yes, I was. It was so busy. You could have told me there was like 2,000 people at the, like, we were there for like maybe half an hour. Mm-hmm. You could have told me there were people there, like 2,000 people there while I was there. I would have believed you. It was packed. But when you walk on the side streets, there's still some scaffolding going on because they're still rebuilding like the gargoyles and the ornamentation.
Gargoyles, who are the like
draining water
system.
I love that we learned something today. I feel so smart right now. But they have like storyboards of all the people that contributed. There are students that interned.
Oh my God! Wait,
I was like,
where was that at the?
Where was I?
Any works? I did
this?
not see it in any work.
But they used the same. There was one guy that knew all the different building methods that they used when they originally built it, and he had to teach all these different people the building methods. How do you become like a genius in this?
Maybe just don't learn anything else, but you focus on something.
That's like, imagine how much time and commitment you have to be like to.
Yeah, it's called school.
Exactly.
You know what was the magic of Disney? The gargoyles didn't actually were attached to the buildings, and they actually had life, so they knew what to do.
That's so true.
So
I'm gonna watch that movie again.
Someone has time. I don't.
Again, background to homework. So
okay.
Don't even worry about it.
I think we pretty much cover what we wanted to cover. Is there something else you wanted to add?
Let me look at my agenda.
I think it was pretty much covered.
Well, the history.
Yeah, yes. And like the importance of it and like the impact.
Yeah.
And a little bit of the restoration. Just like comment below like what other like episodes you would want to watch.
Yeah.
Like
we would take any recommendations of any other case studies.
Yeah, if you really want to watch it, then just drop it down below and we'll read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also another thing, we had 2000 listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have our first, like, 2,000.
2,000.
We have 2,000.
Was it 2,000 or
We have
200?
2,000 views on TikTok, which, like, way to go, us. And also, like, 200 listeners.
It's always an honor to have you guys listening to us.
Yeah. So, shout out
to you.
To our wonderful listeners.
Yeah.
But to everyone out there, we appreciate you. And even if we don't have that many listeners, I really love doing this. I hope that you really love doing this. So,
oh, I hate it. No, I'm kidding. I like it. I love it. Sorry.
Yeah, I like it, I guess.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, for listening to us, for enjoying our banter and our yapping.
Yeah.
And
we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah. We haven't decided what it is yet, but
yeah,
sure it's gonna be fun. So
yeah.
yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye everybody.